Okay, so thank you for joining today and welcome. I will introduce the webinar a little bit later, but right now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming and inviting Salish to open up our webinar today. So Salish, I will pass it over to you.
Atel squalawel, quals quitslama, palaktanat tel squi, talitza qua skalkale, casta kitsum kalem. What I just said to you all was it's wonderful to see all of you on this day. I introduced who I am, my traditional name, Palaktanat. I also shared that I am from the Kitsum Kalem and Skalkale First Nation. So I am a hybrid of Coast Salish and Tsimshian. I honor and recognized the land that any of you all are residing upon right now or working from. It's difficult to do a land acknowledgement when there are many of you coming from various different territories. I hope that your day goes smoothly. I hope that you have all had a productive day. I hope you continue to have an enjoyable evening. I don't know about those of you further east, but we are starting a heat wave here in BC. And so it's been quite a challenge for us to adjust to this temperature. I hope that we all continue to work in good ways. I hope that we continue to work with one another in good ways. I hope we are kind and respectful to ourselves and to each other. And I hope you all remember that we are all good people doing the very best that we can to do the work that's necessary for such important work. I call upon all of our ancestors to stand with us and to witness the words that we are going to share with one another and with all of the participants that are partaking, so that we feel that we have the backing and we have the witnessing of everything that is near and dear to us. Have a wonderful day, and may you all have a wonderful sleep. Lahai.
Thank you very much, Salish, for that lovely welcome. It's always such an honor to have someone to welcome us to our events. Hi, my name is Keitha Mercer. Welcome to our webinar today on Intention to Action, supporting 2SLGBTQI communities. I am the Director of Community Initiatives and Grants here at the Foundation, and happy Pride. So I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement from the Foundation's perspective and from myself. And I have to credit the Equal Pay Coalition for the format that I will be using. So to start first with the settler obligation statement, we are holding this webinar across all of Turtle Island. And as we open today, I wanted to start with a settler acknowledgement of our obligations to work towards truth and reconciliation, both personally and collectively. As I said, my name is Keitha Mercer. I'm a 5th generation white settler from Ukrainian, Icelandic, Scottish, Danish, Dutch, and English peoples who immigrated primarily to Treaty 4 and 6 territory, now known as Saskatchewan, to become farmers. And I want to commit to my obligation as a settler now living on Treaty 13 territory to unlearning, relearning, and taking greater action in support of Indigenous struggles and working towards building good relationships, both personally and in my work. As we begin today, I want to ask each of you and all of us who are settlers on this land to think about how each of us can take concrete steps and action towards full recognition of all Indigenous peoples, Indigenous lands, and of the colonial structures in our society that continue to oppress. Our settlers before us failed to respect and acknowledge Indigenous peoples, practices, laws, and ways of knowing. Settlers approached their relationships with First Peoples as one of cultural genocide, and this failure to respect and acknowledge continues to this day. Settlers failed to abide by the signed treaties and signed agreements with First Peoples, and the failure to abide by these treaties and agreements signed in good faith by Indigenous peoples also continues to this day. So as one small act towards the truth of these lands, we acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional and unceded territory of many nations. We honor the first peoples who live on Turtle Island for thousands of years, and we acknowledge the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on these lands since time immemorial. I'm joining you today from the now urbanized area of Toronto, what settlers call Toronto, and it is the home of many diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. This land includes the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwe Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Agreement and Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And today we ask you to reflect for a minute and think about yourself as an individual, what your role is in your organization, and what concrete steps you can take to fully recognize Indigenous peoples. And we hope our work together today is just one small step on that journey. So in that spirit, we ask you to acknowledge the lands you're joining us from today in the chat as we begin the webinar. If you do not know whose lands you are currently on today, you can find them on the website nativeland.ca. And we are happy we'll put that up in the chat for you if you can't find it. So it is with great pleasure that I am introducing you to 4 panelists who will be discussing how to move from intention to action on involving Indigenous, or not Indigenous, 2SLGBTQ folks who may also be Indigenous in their work. So I will invite Noah from the Untitled Network to begin by introducing themselves.
Yes. Thank you so much, Keitha, and thanks folks for hosting this today. Very excited to participate. So my name's Noah, my pronouns are he and him. I am the Programs and Projects Coordinator with the Untitled Network. I've been with the network for about 4 weeks at this point. But before that, generally I'm a social worker by practice. So I've been in the field for over 6 years, and I've worked mostly in 2S LGBTQ organizations, both in Ottawa, Toronto, and a bit of provincial work as well in Ontario. I'm so super happy to be here and have this conversation today.
Thanks, Noah. Next, I'll invite Denali to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Tran, and I'm the program coordinator for Planned Parenthood Toronto's non-binary BIPOC drop-in, so Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And yeah, the youth, we also have a youth advisory committee that helped run that. And PPT is a pro-choice community health center that advances and advocates for sexual health, mental health, and well-being of youth. We are located in the downtown core of Toronto and provide client-centered services that are pro-choice, youth positive, body positive, sex positive, and of course, two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer positive.
Thank you. Next, I invite Shania to introduce herself.
Shania got me on this as Sunday Yago Yajaps, connect Aga Taramaya Nivoko Sota, Ganawagi to Wakian, G and Circus Territory Ganagere. My name is Shania. I'm Mohawk from Ganawagi and Maya from Nakasha, Guatemala. And I am here in the unceded territory of the Coquitlam and Tsleil-Waututh people. And my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Marcus.
Thank you, Keitha, and thank you to my panelists and everyone coming to attend today. My name is Marcus Reed. My traditional name is Kaniagalis, which means soaring throughout the world. In my time zone in unceded Coast Salish territory, it is morning, so I would like to say in my Indigenous language, Amahitluk Nisam, good morning all, Itoyak Nisam, welcome all, to be in this space together. I'm a 22-year-old queer, trans, Indigenous youth who's I work at UBC. I'm a self-employed facilitator, storyteller. I love to put my energy into activism, and in some spaces as a board of director. So I try to find, I find myself in many spaces that I don't see other queer, trans, and two-spirit folk and BIPOC folk as much as I'd like to. And that's kind of a goal for me, to see more people that stand alongside me. And again, thank you I'm glad to be a panelist here today.
Thank you. So we'll go through a few questions and have the panelists talk a bit about their work. If you have any questions that jump up along the way, feel free to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll ask them towards the end. And just a reminder, we have interpretation, French, English, if you are looking for it. It is the globe at the bottom. And if you need some tech support, we have two moderators. Their names are Michelle and Leva. You can find them in the list to send them a message. So let's start with the basics. Can you tell us a little bit about the context of your work? So I will start with Dinali.
Hi, yeah, so as mentioned, I run the non-binary BIPOC drop-in, and we run bi-weekly right now. We've had around 3 or 4 sessions, and it's just a space for non-binary, gender diverse, gender non-conforming youth who are also POC or Black and Indigenous to just come and hang out. Lately, we've been reading stories together or watching something together. And recently we made a zine together full of pride affirmations to share with one another. And yeah, it's just that space to allow the youth to explore gender on their own terms and with folks that might have similar experiences.
Thanks. Marcus, do you want to talk a little bit about the context of your work?
Sure. In an overview, I'd say the context of my work is at social change and policy change, where I direct my efforts towards work that engages or civically engages marginalized communities that I'm a part of and marginalized communities that I try to stand in solidarity with. And so what it looks like in my day job is supporting student programs for Two-Spirit queer and trans students, as well as BIPOC students, and support student programs based in advising policy change for the University of British Columbia. So that's my day job. I was mentioning in my self-employed work, I do similar stuff, but more on my own terms, getting to engage with other institutions and organizations. But for me, it always circles back to my values of creating social change and creating the change that we need to see in the world and the systems of support that we need to see in the world. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Shania, what is the context of the work you do?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time student at UBC, but I've been working with youth for over 10 years now. BIPOC youth, but primarily Indigenous youth-based work, where I do curriculum writing and land-based resurgence work that is based in Indigenous queer normativity. It is social justice based, and I've also done policy work. A lot of work I've done recently is actually overlapped with Marcus. We've collaborated on a great panel and some youth hubs during the pandemic, so I'm glad to be here with them today.
Wonderful, thank you. And Noah, what's the context of the work you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm with the Enchante Network. So I'm the Programs and Projects Coordinator. So for those who are a bit unfamiliar with the Enchante Network, we're only about 1.5 years in existence. So we're pretty new, and we're a national network connecting 2SLGBTQ organizations across Turtle Island, otherwise known as Canada. And our work focuses on supporting our members. We have organizations who are part of our membership. So to increase their capacity to serve the 2SLGBTQ community and by delivering their own services and supports. We also try to reduce silos throughout our members through fostering collaboration. So through programs like our mentorship program and having events and different ways for our organizations across the nation to connect on the work that they do. And we also try to engage in funders and the government as well on behalf of our members to see how we can kind of like be a channel and be a bridge to give some feedback on a federal level to funders and to the government on what our members need and, you know, people who are doing such hard work on the front lines, what they need to serve the community. Personally, you know, I do this work from the stance of being somebody who's Black and of Jamaican descent. And so for me, it's very important to do this work, you know, by and for the community, also to sort of represent the Black community and also amplify Indigenous voices and Two-Spirit voices as well as I do this work.
Thank you. And I think all of you have touched on this a little bit, but since this is a webinar about supporting 2SLGBTQ communities, can you talk about a little bit about why it's important to specifically support 2SLGBTQ communities in your work? And I guess I'll start. No, I think you talked a little bit about it, but I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really vital to support 2SLGBTQ communities. You know, it's like 2SLGBTQ people are people. We're people who need support, who need resources. And especially when you think about the different things that are at play at society, like homophobia, like transphobia, there are different parts and things going on in society that can serve to further marginalize 2SLGBTQ folks. So it's really important and it's vital that there's specific and designated and by and for the community support available. I also think that it's super important to just like create that space, especially, you know, given like the disproportionate violence that 2SLGBTQ communities face, but also a return to our histories, right? Gender nonconformity, difference in sexuality and sexual diversity and gender diversity is something that existed in a lot of our communities pre-colonization, right? So how do we return to the narratives of like, we are powerful, we are magic, we were the knowledge keepers, right? How do we return to this idea that being who we are should be celebrated, it should be revered? And how do we sort of like acknowledge our marginalizations, but also move to a place where we acknowledge our histories that have been erased and embrace that and move forward with that in a really empowering way, right? I believe and I hope that some of my panelists would agree that a lot of folks who are on the front lines of making a lot of the changes that are necessary for all folks in society are 2SLGBTQ folks, and folks need support. So it's really important that that, you know, continues to happen or starts to happen in many ways.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Shania, do you want to talk a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Noah hit the ball on the head there perfectly. Thank you for all of that. I resonate deeply with that. But I guess within my context, a lot of it is like land-based and art-based, and really we see, you know, cishet men at the center of it. And I think it's important that we realize that, you know, it's really queer Indigenous folks who are at the forefront of these resurgence movements, who are at the forefront of this community work that centers an inclusive and non-gendered kind of binary in terms of how you place yourself within community, how you place yourself on the land, how society, settler colonial society itself places you as a queer Indigenous person. And I think it's all the more powerful when we're, you know, decentralizing that white supremacist view of what our community needs, who our community is made up of. And I think it's important that we have Two-Spirit queer folks, you know, Black, Indigenous, people of color at the front of these movements and the ones leading this, because we're the ones who can actually contextualize what we need and how we place ourselves outside of that settler colonial binary of gender and sexuality. And that's just, yeah.
Yeah, it gets to the intersectionality, right? Our identities can never be just one, so we need to make space for all of them. Marcus, do you want to talk a little bit about from your perspective?
Absolutely. So here I think I'll try to summarize two things. One, some I guess my first experience in public policy research, where I really found the need for support for queer, trans, two-spirit people and gendered folk. And then I'll also share a little bit of lived experience and that informs that research. And so having being giving it an opportunity to develop research on my personal interest, what I chose was a juggernaut of anti-oppression. I want anti-oppression seen in workplaces. I want there to be safer spaces for people going into work, not having to deal with anything, whether racism, sexism, transphobia, ableism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anything. And some specific recommendations that I came up with was the need for queer, trans, and two-spirit supports in the workplace that just aren't there, as well as the work on policy for gender equality has to be so deepened, where we're going beyond a binary and we're looking at how human rights for trans people should be honored and should be respected in a workplace. And then at the same time, on personal experience, I would just see, I'm resonating with Shania, kind of pointing to like, in this land-based work, who or in activism, like who is at the center, and not actually leading it, but cis, straight, light skin or white men, and that privilege comes at the expense of queer, trans, two-spirit folk and women and dark-skinned and Black and Indigenous people. And like, I just then want to share on, and then personally, like where I felt times I've needed that support when it hasn't been there. It's been times when, I'm getting misgendered. I'm getting misgendered in classrooms, in workplaces, in boardrooms, and just trying to advocate for queer, trans, and two-spirit people while I'm literally not being recognized of who I am is very heartbreaking, honestly. And it's quite difficult to sustain myself and the queer, trans, and two-spirit people beside me. And so that's just, for me, very tangible. Like, we need to be putting in practice the intention of creating safer spaces while we're inputting action and while we're directing towards action. So I see both of these things, intention and action, needing to come together to be able to get the results and the work that we need done.
Thank you. Yes, I think Noah talked a bit about increased violence against queer, trans, and two-spirit people, but I think that also includes workplaces and our vulnerability to unemployment, underemployment, that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you very much for bringing that in. Dinah Lee, do you want to talk a little bit about why it's important in the work you do?
Yeah, just to echo what Noah, Shania, Marcus have said, all amazing points. I think for me, it's just like there's a lot of pressure when you know that you're the only one, say, in an organization with intersecting identities. And so it's literally all on you to bring these things up because no one else is even thinking about them. So for other folks, I would just say it's important because if you want to grow as an organization, you really need to look at who's in those positions of power and how they can best support the folks that are on the ground doing most of the work. And if that's like changing who is in position of power, I think that would be one of the first steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've all touched a little bit on the fact that like making people choose one single identity in order to participate in a space, shuts off all the other ways that you come to the table. And, being the only one and having to do all the calling out in any context, but it's is exhausting and, you know, makes you vulnerable to a lot of things. So our next question is about some actionable or tangible items you recommend from your experience. And Marcus, I think you started talking about some action items or some recommendations for where to start. So do you want to talk a little bit more? Do you have any other ones? I also think I caught you just as you were thinking about it. So if you need, feel free to.
All good. I'm totally glad to take more space on this question about, yeah, action items, 'cause it's so important, right? You know, we can, I appreciate this question being there because, you know, in events, we can come together and have conversations and dialogue. But then to have that opportunity for us to think about actions that, you know, we can take past this panel. And for me, my mind is really sitting with, making spaces safer with the intention of gender equality and in mind, you know, like in planning, in holding a space, whether it looks like encouraging folks to share their pronouns, whether it's introducing yours, and you know, these actions might look different for depending on who we are, on our positionality. I would never want to add more labor of a load to other queer, trans, and two-spirit folk and BIPOC folk, or anyone who's marginalized. But for the folks who have the privilege if we're talking about gender equality, I'm pointing at men to step it up. I'm pointing at cisgendered men to use their power and privilege to make our spaces to stop being the ones to contribute the most to, you know, the violence, to the unsafety, and, you know, listen to the queer, trans, and two-spirit folks around, and listen to the very people who have the solutions in mind. And never forget to be intersectional, not just intersections of our oppression, but all of our privilege as well. You know, acknowledging and putting into practice that we all have power, oppression, and privilege that we have to utilize to be able to liberate all of us. And so, you know, that's more of a story of my thoughts around tangible actions, but that's what I wanted to share this time. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for also bringing in that we have intersecting privileges as well. I think that's very important. Shania, do you have any tangible or actionable items or recommendations that people can take into their work?
I do. I mean, a lot of them obviously overlap with stuff that Marcus has just touched on, and I think that comes from a place of the work that we've done and, you know, experience there. I'd say, firstly, recognizing that there needs to be substantial restructuring of positions within organizations, equitable compensation of folks who are taking on the labor that's not only intellectual, but that is emotional, that goes into creating these inclusive initiatives, these intersectional initiatives, creating stable positions and streams of funding for these programs and the workers that maintain these BIPOC, queer centered initiatives, you know, wherever they may be, you know, financial stability and actionable support from organizations for these folks that are the ones restructuring this cis heteronormative, settler, colonial, ableist, ageist, capitalist system is so important. And that means, you know, that cis het white men who are the most privileged in all of these spaces need to take a step back and realize that, you know, our lived expertise is just as valuable as the positions that you have been granted simply because of your privilege. So elevate our voices, center our voices, put money behind our actions, and support us, because we're going to be vulnerable, and it's hard to do this work. And sometimes we just need someone to, you know, take on that labor, a little bit of the burden, and for you to lighten it in any kind of way that you possibly can.
Yes, big shout out on the putting your money where your mouth is, and also definitely on recognizing lived experience as real knowledge when we're looking at how we make change. Noah, can you talk a little bit about actionable or tangible items?
Yeah, for sure. Marcus and Shania just really kind of like said amazing points, and I sort of want to start by echoing that around listening. I think that's really important. There's people who are doing amazing work for 2S LGBTQ communities, and they are in the communities. And some of the challenges that my fellow panelists mentioned with doing the work when you're for the community, it can be very exhausting. It can be very emotionally labor intensive in many ways. So listening and honoring that and acknowledging that is a first helpful step. So I just really wanted to echo that as well. And also Shania's point around restructuring, right? So my thought is, kind of like get comfortable being uncomfortable. Things are gonna move and shake as society starts to slowly move in a way that is good for all and inclusive for all and acknowledges our lived experiences and our histories. And so in doing this work, if you're coming to this work with different privileges in terms of race, in terms of class, in terms of whatever it is, it might feel uncomfortable for you to engage in these conversations, right? It's uncomfortable. Navigating change in general is really uncomfortable, right? But when we're doing so in a way where we're talking about our lived experiences, when we're talking about our identities, when we're talking about our traumas, it can be uncomfortable to hear, right? It can be very simple to take it personally, right? I want to encourage folks to recognize the systems that are at play, recognize and research the histories. Don't diminish them. The histories are real, they're there. They're not opinions, they're not up for debates. Same way identities are not up for debates either. So really thinking about that, right? So when I think about different organizations who, for example, gently have, because I know we're with the Canadian Women's Foundation today, but what does it mean to have the word women's in your organizational name, right? So when you're looking at doing this work, do you have the capacity to do this work? Realistically, transparently, do you have the tools to do this work, right? And if you want to do this work, what does it mean? It might mean, changing the name of your organization to reflect the community that you want to serve moving forward, right? It might mean that some people might have to be let go because, they're continual folks who are just not getting it. They're coming in with their own biases and they're not willing to learn. Folks have to and so restructuring can be uncomfortable in that way because some hard conversations have to happen, right? And so that's something I really want to highlight. And I think just generally, some really actionable items, like I think funders can generally, do great in creating a more inclusive way for 2S LGBTQ individuals, organizations, groups to apply for funding and get that in a way that's really accessible. Applying for grants and funding for programming can be very convoluted. There's a lot of red tape to go through oftentimes. So making the process really accessible for folks who might not always have the tools or the education or the background or the knowledge or a college degree or university degree to apply for funding, making it really accessible for folks to get the money to do what they need to do. Because I can just think about our member organizations, and we have over 120 organizations in our network doing this great work, but scarcity is a real thing in our realm, right? So everybody's fighting for the same money, right? And what does that mean for the relationships we're trying to build for each other, right? So really my hope and my dream in terms of tangible items, as well as for a diversity and more for everybody, who wants to do this work, because it's really important.
Yes, thank you. Creating space for multiple ways of being is so important. And yeah, thank you for the shout out on how words matter and what we name things. Danelli, do you have some actionable or tangible items you recommend?
Yeah, for sure. And just to further add on what Noah had said about funding, for orgs that do have that money, it's also okay to give them the money and let folks decide how they want to use it. And yeah, I know there's all these stipulations and deliverables about certain funding, but it's okay to just let folks use the money in the ways that they need to use it. So in terms of access, that's also one thing to think about. And like, you don't always have to contribute to a conversation in order to learn from it. To echo folks just like listening about what has been said. And for us, I would look at folks' policies. Are all your policies gender neutral, including like a pregnancy leave policy, referring to like the pregnant person, regardless of gender, of course. Asking each of your staff members if they run programming, how to make their programming more trans and non-binary inclusive, as well as like, of course, not assuming anyone's gender, especially like over the phone kind of thing too, because that happens a lot. And yeah, I would also recommend reading our equity statement that we updated last month, and I can put the link in the chat as well. We were working with Tennille Brown, and yeah, there's some action items there as well that I hope other orgs can commit to and should commit to. I would also just say that like folks have mentioned lots of training and like anti-O training for big organizations, but also knowing that that's not just a one-off thing and then you're done. It's continual and should be looked at like every 6 months or every year to make sure you come back to it and like really commit to what you're saying.
Yes, deeply agreed about you know, taking training and implementing it in your work, like in an actionable, operational way, and revisiting it, because you know this will never be a checkbox. So we have a little bit of time for questions from folks who are listening in, and if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box. And both Noah and Dinali talked a bit about funders. And so, we have actually a question that's come in about that. So there's a question from Marlo asking, what would be your top recommendations to funders, private and government in particular, in terms of supporting our communities? What needs to change or be improved? So Noah and Dinali, I know you started it off, so maybe Dinali, I'll let you expand a little further on that if you have any other recommendations for funders.
I think like for me personally, in my own experience, a lot of funding is also based on being a post-secondary student, and a lot of folks don't have access to that education. And so the funding that's like specifically says you have to be currently in school or also under 30 and returning to school, that's, you know, a big barrier for a lot of folks, or for folks who are in between places and jobs. And so just that main thing is, in my own experience, it's like, oh, this like looks like a super great opportunity, and then you look at the qualifications and you're just kind of like disheartened because you would love to do whatever the work that they're doing.
Yeah, that makes me think a lot about the ways in which you know, the criteria around jobs, funding, etc., like are based on the kind of life a like cis, heterosexual, largely white person's like life trajectory might be, like finish high school and then you go to university and like etc., and like 2SLGBTQ people's lives can be more interrupted, and it can take longer to get through those places, especially if you're like experiencing homelessness or, you know, had a family that kicked you out or whatever. So like getting into university and getting through university, for example, takes a lot longer. So having like those multiple criteria can be a real barrier. Very, very important point. Noah, do you want to talk a little bit more about funding and funders?
Yeah, for sure. Just to continue off what Denali was sharing, I think that's really important, you know, making it more accessible and the parameters a bit more flexible, you know, based on the communities that you're trying to kind of like redistribute funds into, right? So when I think about the process of applying for funding for program, initiative, an organization, to help you improve your processes. It would be really helpful, to have a process where there's a continuation of communication between folks who are applying and the funders, right? So if you have an info session, that's always great. Having like a designated email where, folks can like contact you and like run a draft by you, and then you can give feedback around like, hey, would this work? How is this language, right? Oftentimes when applying for grants and everything, language is really important. Sometimes folks don't know what the right language is to use. Again, a lot of folks might not be familiar with applying for funding. They really just want to do the work, but they don't understand sometimes that, you have to use the right language and parameters, etc. So making it really accessible in a way like, hey, here's a contact person you can contact. If you have a question about your application, if you want feedback about a draft, right? And, I acknowledge that this can be a challenge when, funding streams are kind of set up in a way that's like a competition where like, 10 organizations got it and 30 weren't unsuccessful, right? So, thinking about that process and thinking about how that puts people against each other and welcoming folks to like reach out to you, I think that's super important. I also think it's important to think about, as a funder, what are your deliverables, right? And when folks are getting some funding from WAGE, so Women and Gender Equality Canada, right? Some of the deliverables there might be around like, how many women did you serve? How many men did you serve? But like, those quantitative numbers, sometimes it's hard to quantify because we're serving diverse folks who don't identify all the time with the gender binary, right? But that's what we have to deliver to funders because that's what they would like to see, right? So understanding like those challenges and those nuances around your deliverables and trying to make it more reflective of the communities who are receiving the funding. Generally, more designated funding for the 2SLGBTQ sector that, it acknowledges the diversities and find ways to like submit deliverables that make sense based on the work that we're doing. And I think lastly as well, I think that like emphasizing like there's quantitative information that I just identify that's really hard to navigate sometimes, but the qualitative information is really important, right? So although there's the binary that exists within the numbers, when folks are reporting back to funders, the quality information is so important. That's where folks get to lay out their impact, right? And in that impact, you can see that how like, the populations that are being served, the impact that's there, but you're not able to quantify it through the numbers, right? So leaning more into like the qualitative and the impact of the money that was received and acknowledging that over like, really statistics and all those things. And, which not to open another can of worms, but like numbers and statistics, and how colonial those can be and how, disparaging those can be. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you so much there to think about for sure. Shania, do you have any recommendations for funders and funding?
I mean, you both just really went into that so perfectly. So I don't really want to take up too much space and take away from all of the information that you just gifted us all with. But yeah, accessibility definitely, and recognizing that even the folks within our own communities, even if we fall under the marginalized umbrella, there's still usually folks that have privileges within those who have a proximity to whiteness, to economic wealth and stability that will skew the folks that you're actually trying to reach if that kind of funding you're looking to give has all of these obstacles in the way. Like making it accessible is key. But yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Thank you. And Marcus, give you a chance to jump in if you have anything you want to add.
Sure, I'll also keep this portion short, but then wanted to reference some of the few things my fellow panelists were sharing. Yeah, with Dinali sharing about how like that need for just giving money. I would had just wanted to give an example of where I've seen that done really well, and that was at the Vancouver Foundation, giving operational grants for Black, Indigenous, people of color organizations or people who can partner with an organization. And for me, seeing that for the first time, like I applied, and even I was in the mindset of, okay, I gotta have a whole program, I'm like applying money for a program, but it's really not, like seeing that shift towards just giving money to, operations, letting these racialized organizations and folk have the money that they need to do what they want and aspire to do. And that's really in aligning with, the future that I see. So that's in the short term, I want operational grants. But in the long term, I think organizations and the government still have an outlying duty to make reparations for the harms and the injustices that marginalized people have faced and continue to face. And so operational grants in the meantime, while having these conversations about shifting towards justice need to happen. And the folks that are, putting in that time and labor, compensate them, make sure those spaces are safer for them to engage in these conversations, again, so we can not just get somewhere, like, oh, we got to this point, yes, we're giving reparations now, but no, how did that happen? What was the process? And to, just remember, things have to be done in a good way, not just the end result, the outcomes, but the whole process along the way. And so I think for that, for me, hearing these conversations are a little bit revolutionary for me. And that's just what needs to happen. We need a revolution.
I support that. So we have a lot of questions, and we'll get through as many as we can. But I also, if we don't get to them all, please know that it's more because of time than anything else. But I did want to get to this one because all four of you spoke a little bit about barriers to accessing services or going to organizations or participating in movements. And this person, Sydney, asked a question. They said that this Pride, there's been a lot of talk about rainbow washing from organizations. And I guess Sydney works at a mental health organization. They want to know what advice you have for going beyond safe space stickers and Pride social media posts. And I'm assuming this means to make the spaces even more inclusive or remove more barriers. Shania, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'll just touch on this kind of from a lived experience perspective. I'm coming from just having worked with a health organization, and they had a whole Pride Week kind of thing happening where it was a lot of that rainbow washing, homo nationalism. And it's an organization that services Indigenous folks, but it was settlers running it. It was cis hetero folks running it. And it really skewed, I think, what community actually needed, which was folks from community being centered in this, recognizing that it goes beyond just having a rainbow sticker somewhere. If this lived experience and recognizing the challenges that your specific community needs. So in my case, it was, we had no clean running water on reserve. There was so much lateral violence. It was in a state of extreme white supremacy, and having queer folks represented didn't just do it. It was acknowledging that our lives are still in danger if we are out, and that it's even more severe for our trans, our non-binary, and our dark-skinned folks in community. It's recognizing that if you are going to bring light and center these experiences and these voices, you also need to have actionable supports behind what you're doing, because you're potentially outing folks, which we don't recommend, but you want to make sure that you have a safe place for people to go, that you have food and shelter for them, that you have monetary supports for them, that you have mental health supports for them, that you're not putting them in danger by just making this space within your organization, that at the end of the day, when they go home, because they will go home from this, whatever it is, that will have changed the way that they relate to the world and the way that the world relates to them. And we want to make sure that their safety is key here.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing that up and talking not only about safety, but also about the fact that we have to, create space for more than just, once you bring 2SLGBTQ people to the table, what else are we talking about? It's not just about having a seat, it's about how you support and what else you put in there. Thank you very much for bringing that in. Noah, do you want to talk a little bit about, how we can move beyond rainbow stickers and pride?
Yeah. I really appreciate this question because to touch a bit on my lived experience, I remember when I was much younger, I was looking for a family doctor who was able to prescribe me hormone therapy as a transgender person. And I found this really good clinic, and an acquaintance of mine, I put a post on social media, and long story short, this person was like, I've been to this clinic and, they have inclusive washrooms. So it's likely that they might have a doctor on their staff who can. And so I walk into the clinic, there's flags everywhere. The bathroom, there's a big gender neutral sign on the bathroom. I'm like, great. I go into my doctor's appointment. Hey, can you prescribe me hormone therapy? Doctor responds, I don't know anything about that. I have to refer you out. I have to do research. So I give that example to say that, it's very easy to put flags, stickers, posters up. And, somebody like me or other trans and gender diverse folks can walk into your organization, your service, try to access it kind of like after trying to do that vetting and all of a sudden be met with a bit of harm, right? And so really thinking about doing the work internally of restructuring, strategic planning, whatever your group or organization has to go through to really look at making your services and your organization inclusive and moving towards that, doing that really internally for a long time and really assessing that and reworking that and fleshing that out before you're really front facing with the posters and the signage and all that on social media, right? Because I think it could do more harm for somebody to access your service, seeing all of that, and then, kind of being on the end of feeling like, oh, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. And I'll just leave it there.
Yes, absolutely. It comes back around to the what you all said about, it's more than just a training that you have to really integrate it into your work and monitor it and continue coming back to it. Dinelli, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I'm just trying to answer some of the questions directly that are in the Q&A because some of them are really, really great questions. But yeah, I think Noah and Shania have said it. It's not just a one-time thing. Yeah, I noticed that because May and June, of course, we get a whole bunch of, we should do more workshops, and we get contacted a lot during that May time. And it's just we're here the whole year. So do it the whole year.
Gay 365 over here. Yeah. Marcus, do you have anything you want to add?
In courtesy of the other questions, I think I'll just quickly say one thing so then we can make time for the other ones, and just say that, yeah, in summary for me, go beyond just that rainbow flag or just some symbol. I want to see queer, trans, and two-spirit people reflected in policy. I want policy to be encapsulating the needs and the resources for these folks to be set up in, whether it's workplaces or wherever, institutions, to be reflecting us in policy. So we can not just sustain ourselves wherever we are, but we can thrive, and we need policy and practice to be able to do that.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. We only have 5 minutes left, but I really want to get to this question because I think it's very important, particularly, and we've seen it particularly this year. Do you all have any advice for creating safe spaces for queer and trans youth in rural communities, particularly around addressing widespread homophobia and transphobia? So we know folks, particularly youth in rural communities, have been struggling even more than ever this year in isolation. So any advice or recommendations you have for that would be really amazing. And who have I never started with? Marcus, I don't know if I've ever started off first with you.
Sure. And perhaps I'll start by saying I may not have that advice, but what I'll share is in lived experience to highlight the need for change and for support in rural areas. And then to preface, I wanted to reference Noah in, acknowledging how the conditions, let's say that rural places are in, I'm going to speak to my nations and to my communities. We're so different before colonization, and gender and sexuality looked differently and was treated differently. And just since colonization, I'd say has warped my community's understanding and treatment of queer, trans, and two-spirit people. And so I don't have that advice because I've just been met with these issues and have not know how to combat it, particularly as like a young, very feminine, Indigenous person. I've met a lot of violence, and now I'm at a point, holding and running programs for queer, trans, and two-spirit folk. And I've had an opportunity, or my nation has reached out asking if I want to do something. And for me, I'm like, I need to see supports there. I need to see the work being done. And what I would have to commend is, people back home, other queer, trans, and two-spirit people back home, living in their truth, standing up for each other, and making space, not telling someone that they're two-spirit, but making that space for saying I'm two-spirit, taking that space for saying I'm queer, I'm bisexual, I'm trans, and whatever it is, not putting that on someone, but taking that up and standing with it. So then, other folks in the communities can do that as well. And so without the advice, it's to do exactly that, take that stand. And whether that's cisgender people, whether that's straight people, we all have again, our positionality, we all have different ways that we gotta stand up for each other. Yeah.
Thanks. We only have 2 minutes left, so I will open it up to Shania, Noah, or Dinali if you have any thoughts about supporting rural youth living rurally.
I definitely do, very quickly, because I would like to give other panelists a chance as well. Access, right? So I think about COVID-19 and how everything moved virtually. So in my experience, this created more, access for folks who are living rurally, to be able to participate in programs and initiatives and access care and support for themselves. So continuing that outside of the COVID-19 context, having things happen in person, but also allowing for the virtual access. For queer and trans folks who are accessing service, sometimes it's not always safe leaving home. Sometimes it's a question of like, where are you going, right? So being able to access services and supports from home, super important. And also going into the community and doing researches, outreach as much as you can. So, not forcing folks to like come to you, but how can you go to them as well and do that work?
I will say really quickly, I have been doing this work during the pandemic in a rural northern community. That is what I'm talking about based on the organization, based on where I'm coming from. Access is super important, Noah. I agree. That representation, making sure that the work is done from your organization internally, that you're actually living what it is you're trying to put into practice, because you can't create those safe spaces if you're not doing it within yourself first. It's already 11:30. Okay. Yeah, but also access, recognizing that internet access is not accessible everywhere in the North. Making sure that you are providing actual material, tangible tools so that people can have access to these things. Sometimes that includes food, transportation, a safe place to do this thing online or something like that. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Dinali, anything you want to add?
I would just say that, of course, it's great that you want to start something in a rural place, but it's also okay to take your time starting it and going into it with like the proper intentions, knowing the people that you are going to be working with and finding your allies that'll help you do that. Because there have been many programs that just started because it was needed, but then along the way they figure out that like we weren't really ready to like come with all these things. So find your people and, you know, start intentionally and with a good heart.
Thank you. Thank you. There are so many other amazing questions that I'm sorry we weren't able to get to. I think it's just a sign of how badly these conversations are needed. So thank you to the four of you for coming here today and for sharing so much knowledge. It was a really important conversation to have. And, you know, I've been doing this work for a long time and I still feel like I learned a lot. So much appreciation for your time and your thoughtfulness and your openness to this conversation. Big thank you to everybody for joining. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel and sharing the link out. So if you would like to share it, or if you missed some of the amazing knowledge, or if you want to go back to it, you'll be able to find it there. The link to the bios of our four panelists is in the chat. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about them, or want to write down their names so that you can follow them on social media and go to all their other panels and discussions, that you can find them there. And as always, keep an eye out for more conversations and webinars from the foundation. We happily host these conversations, these types of conversations regularly. Oh, and Leva just posted a link to a PDF that has a whole bunch of resources, podcasts, movies, and books about 2SLGBTQ communities. So if you want to learn more or want to read about yourself, you can find them there. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy Pride, and stay safe out there.